Imagine this one small choice repeated daily, slowly reshaping the person you become. What if success isn't about massive leaps, but about the tiny, invisible steps no one notices? Every habit, good or bad, casts a vote for the story you tell about yourself. Ask yourself, are you building the future you dream of, or are you slowly drifting into the one you fear? Greatness isn't born in a single moment. It's forged in the quiet discipline of daily action. Today, you'll discover how small habits, done consistently, hold the power to transform your identity, your success, and your life. Small habits compound into massive results over time because the actions we repeat daily are like seeds planted in the soil of our future. One push-up today may feel insignificant, one page of a book may seem too small to matter, and saving a single dollar may appear laughable compared to the larger goals we hold. But over weeks, months, and years, these tiny efforts gather momentum. Just as water shapes stone through persistence, our lives are shaped not by what we do occasionally, but by what we do consistently. Imagine compounding interest in the financial world. A small investment, left untouched, grows exponentially because time multiplies its effect. The same law governs our habits. A single small change, multiplied over time, can redefine who we are and what we achieve. The key is not to chase instant gratification or visible results, but to trust the invisible process of growth happening beneath the surface. Think of a bamboo tree, which spends years building roots underground before it suddenly shoots upward, towering in just weeks. Your habits are those roots, invisible yet powerful, preparing you for breakthroughs you cannot yet see. Every day you show up, you cast a vote for the future you want, and while each vote seems small, together they create unstoppable momentum. Over time, those small habits weave into your identity, and you begin to act not out of willpower, but because it's simply who you are becoming. The transformation feels gradual until one day the results appear so massive that people call it overnight success, but deep inside, you'll know it was the compounding effect of countless small choices made daily that turned dreams into reality. Focus on systems, not just goals, because goals alone give you direction, but systems give you the process to actually reach them. A goal is like a destination on a map, but without a vehicle, you'll never arrive. Systems are that vehicle. They are the daily routines, habits, and structures that carry you forward no matter what obstacles appear. Many people set goals with passion, declaring they'll lose weight, write a book, or build a business, but enthusiasm fades quickly when there is no system to sustain the effort. A system is waking up at the same time every morning, following a workout plan, or writing for 30 minutes daily regardless of mood or circumstance. Systems don't depend on bursts of motivation. They are designed to keep you moving when motivation disappears. Imagine two athletes both want to win a championship, but the one who commits to training, recovery, nutrition, and consistent practice, the system, will outperform the one who only dreams about the trophy. Systems transform the abstract into something practical, turning lofty ambitions into manageable actions that compound over time. Goals can inspire, but they can also frustrate when progress feels slow, while systems let you measure success in the act of showing up and improving daily. They shift the focus from an uncertain future to the controllable present. When you commit to systems, you start building identity, because you're no longer just someone chasing a goal. You are someone living the process that makes the goal inevitable. Instead of saying, "I want to run a marathon," you create a system of running daily, and in time, the marathon becomes a natural result of who you have become. Identity drives behavior. Become the type of person you want to be, because lasting change is not about forcing yourself to act differently, but about shifting who you believe you are. When your actions are aligned with your identity, habits no longer feel like chores, they feel like expressions of who you are becoming. If you see yourself as a runner, going for a jog is not an obligation, it's simply what runners do. If you believe you are disciplined, making healthy food choices is natural, not forced, Too often people focus on outcomes, saying they want to lose weight, earn more money, or write a book, but those are external achievements. True transformation comes when you internalize a new identity and let that identity guide every choice you make. It begins with small wins, tiny acts that prove to yourself you are that kind of person. Every time you show up at the gym, you cast a vote for being an athlete. Every time you sit down to write, you cast a vote for being a writer. Each small action reinforces the story you tell yourself about who you are, and over time, that story becomes your reality. When you start asking, "What would a person like me do in this situation?" you shift your decision-making from temporary effort to authentic alignment. The goal is not just to achieve success once, but to become the type of person who consistently lives in alignment with that success. Identity is the root, behavior is the fruit, and when you cultivate the right identity, the actions will naturally follow. Instead of trying to chase results, you begin to embody them, and that embodiment transforms your habits into a lifestyle that feels effortless and sustainable. Every action is a vote for the person you're becoming, because each choice you make contributes to the story of who you are. No single decision defines you, yet collectively, your actions carve out the identity you carry into tomorrow. Think of every moment as a ballot box where your habits cast votes, and the more you repeat a behavior, the more evidence you collect for that version of yourself. One workout may not make you an athlete, but 10, 20, or 50 workouts begin to solidify that identity. One page written may not make you a writer, but the habit of showing up to write every day builds undeniable proof that you are. The beauty of this truth is that it gives power back to small, seemingly insignificant actions. You don't need to wait for a massive breakthrough to change your life. You can change it with the next decision you make. Even when you fail or fall short, your next action is another chance to cast a vote in favor of the person you wish to become. Over time, the balance of votes shapes your character, your habits, and ultimately your destiny. This is why consistency matters more than intensity, because your identity is not built in one dramatic gesture, but in the quiet repetition of small choices stacked day after day. The question then becomes simple yet powerful. What kind of person are you voting to become with your next action? Each decision either strengthens or weakens the version of yourself you aspire to, and with enough deliberate votes, the identity you once dreamed of no longer feels like a distant possibility, but a natural reflection of who you already are. Make habits obvious to increase consistency, because the easier it is to notice a habit, the more likely you are to follow through with it. Human behavior is often guided by what captures attention, and if your desired habit is hidden, it becomes easy to forget or ignore. Imagine wanting to drink more water, but keeping your bottle tucked away in a cupboard. You'll likely forget. Place it on your desk where you can see it, and suddenly the cue reminds you to act. The same principle applies to reading more. Leaving a book on your pillow makes it almost impossible to miss before bed. When habits are visible and convenient, they become natural choices rather than forced efforts. Our brains are wired to respond to cues in our environment, so designing surroundings that highlight the behaviors we want is one of the simplest yet most powerful strategies for change. If you want to eat healthier, keep fruit on the counter instead of cookies. If you want to exercise, set out your gym clothes where you'll see them first thing in the morning. Clarity removes friction and visibility sparks action. The goal is not to rely on willpower or memory, but to create an environment where the habit calls out to you. Think of habits as seeds waiting for light. The more visible they are, the more they grow. When you intentionally design your surroundings to point toward the person you want to become, you no longer fight against distraction or forgetfulness. Instead, you create a path of least resistance, where the obvious choice is also the right choice, and consistency flows naturally from what your eyes see, and your mind cannot ignore. Reduce friction to make good habits easier, because the smaller the barrier between you and the action, the more likely you are to follow through. Many times, it's not a lack of willpower that holds you back, but the unnecessary steps standing in the way of progress. If you want to work out but your gym is far away, you'll find reasons to skip it. Keep a set of dumbbells at home, and suddenly exercise is always within reach. If you want to practice guitar but keep it stored in its case in the closet, you'll rarely touch it. Place it on a stand in the living room, and you'll naturally pick it up more often. By removing extra steps, you make the path toward your desired behavior smoother and simpler. This principle works with every aspect of life. Prepare healthy snacks in advance so eating well becomes the default choice. Lay out your clothes the night before to make mornings effortless. Or automate your savings so money is transferred before you even think about it. Friction creates resistance, and resistance slows momentum, but reducing it turns action into something almost automatic. Think about how technology companies design apps. They remove as many clicks as possible to make using them effortless, which is why people spend hours scrolling without realizing it. You can use the same psychology to your advantage by engineering your environment so good habits are the easiest option. Success is often not about working harder, but about making the right choice so simple that it feels natural to do it. When you lower the barriers, you stop fighting with excuses and start flowing with consistency. And what once felt like discipline begins to feel like second nature. Increase friction to break bad habits, because the harder it is to engage in them, the less likely you are to follow through. Bad habits often thrive because they are convenient, automatic, and right at your fingertips. Scrolling endlessly on your phone happens not because you consciously decide to waste hours, but because the habit is too easy. You pick it up and the distraction begins. By adding friction, you interrupt that loop. Put your phone in another room during work, delete social media apps from your home screen, or set time limits that require extra steps to bypass. Each layer of difficulty weakens the grip of the habit. If unhealthy snacks are in plain sight, you'll eat them without thought. If you remove them from your pantry or place them on a high shelf, the effort required makes you think twice. The more inconvenient you make a bad habit, the more space you create between impulse and action, and that space gives you control. Habits are built on cues and ease, so when you reverse that process and make them harder, they lose their power. Think of it as building speed bumps on a road. The more bumps you add, the slower the drive becomes. You don't have to rely on willpower to resist, because the design of your environment does the work for you. Cancel subscriptions that encourage binge watching. Keep your credit card out of reach to reduce impulsive spending, or log out of accounts so logging back in takes extra effort. These small barriers may seem trivial, but they add up to powerful deterrents. By intentionally increasing friction, you reclaim your attention, your time, and your energy, redirecting them toward choices that serve the person you want to become. Motivation is fleeting. Environment shapes behavior, because no matter how inspired you feel in a single moment, that energy eventually fades, while your surroundings constantly influence your actions. Think about how easy it is to eat junk food when it's sitting right in front of you, or how much more likely you are to read when a book is resting on your nightstand. Environment silently guides choices without requiring conscious thought, making it far more reliable than bursts of motivation. You don't need to remind yourself to scroll on your phone because the device is always within reach. But if you replace that cue with a journal, you'll find yourself writing instead. People often blame themselves for lacking discipline, when the real issue is that their environment is designed to promote the very habits they want to avoid. Shaping your surroundings is like giving yourself an invisible push in the right direction, turning the default option into the desirable one. If your workspace is clean, organized, and distraction-free, you'll focus better without forcing yourself. If your kitchen is filled with fresh, healthy foods, eating well becomes the natural choice. Environment also includes the people you surround yourself with, because their behaviors become contagious. Spend time with those who embody the lifestyle you want, and your own habits will follow. The key is to stop relying on fleeting motivation and instead build spaces that support who you want to become. When the environment aligns with your goals, actions flow almost effortlessly, because you've reduced resistance and made progress the path of least resistance. Instead of pushing yourself against constant temptation, you let your surroundings pull you forward, and that subtle shift transforms willpower into automatic momentum. Never underestimate the power of tiny improvements, because small gains, repeated consistently, create transformations that seem impossible at first glance. Most people overestimate what they can achieve in a short time and underestimate what steady effort can accomplish over months and years. Improving by just 1% each day may not feel like much, but over time that small edge compounds into extraordinary results. The human mind craves dramatic change, but real growth hides in the little adjustments. A better choice at lunch, 5 extra minutes of reading, a slightly earlier bedtime, 1 more rep at the gym. Each tiny step feels almost invisible in the moment, but when stacked together, they build momentum that becomes unstoppable. Think of an airplane adjusting its course by a single degree. At first, the shift is unnoticeable, but over a long distance, it leads to an entirely different destination. Your life works the same way. Minor corrections in daily habits change the trajectory of your future. The beauty of small improvements is that they are accessible to everyone. You don't need massive willpower or endless resources, only the commitment to do a little better today than yesterday. Over time, these small wins shape confidence, discipline, and identity, proving to yourself that progress is possible. When challenges feel overwhelming, breaking them down into tiny, manageable steps makes the impossible feel within reach. Every great achievement, from building businesses to mastering skills, is built on a foundation of these incremental gains. Tiny improvements may not grab attention in the moment, but their compounding effect creates results so powerful that they appear almost magical in hindsight, reminding us that consistency in the small things unlocks greatness in the big things. Success is built in silence, not in grand gestures, because true progress happens behind the scenes in the quiet hours when no one is watching. The world often celebrates the moment of victory, the spotlight, the applause, the finished product, but it rarely acknowledges the invisible journey that made it possible. Greatness is not achieved in a single dramatic leap, but in the consistent, unnoticed steps that accumulate over time. The athlete's performance on the field is rooted in years of training before sunrise. The writer's bestseller is born from countless hours of writing drafts alone in silence. The musician's flawless performance is the result of endless practice in solitude. What others call talent is often nothing more than the quiet persistence to show up every single day, even when no reward is visible. Silence is powerful because it removes distractions, external validation and noise, allowing you to focus purely on the work itself. When you chase attention instead of mastery, you build your identity on the applause of others, and that foundation is fragile. But when you commit to growing in silence, to putting in the effort without announcing it, you cultivate strength, patience, and discipline that no one can take from you. Small, consistent actions practiced quietly outlast short bursts of loud effort that fade quickly. Grand gestures may impress for a moment, but they cannot sustain you for a lifetime. Success that endures is built brick by brick, habit by habit, hour by hour. In those unseen moments when you choose discipline over comfort, growth over distraction, and persistence over excuses, the silence of preparation is where confidence is forged, because when the moment of opportunity arrives, you no longer need to prove anything. You simply reveal the results of the work you have already done. The world may call it sudden success, but you will know it was created in the stillness of your daily choices, where noise was absent and commitment spoke the loudest. Consistency beats intensity in the long run, because while bursts of effort can create excitement, it is the steady rhythm of repeated action that creates lasting transformation. Many people start strong, pouring all their energy into a new habit, a new project, or a new dream, but they burn out quickly when the intensity becomes unsustainable. True progress is not measured by how hard you push for a day or a week, but by how reliably you show up day after day, even when the excitement has faded. A single intense workout will not change your body, but exercising regularly over months will. Writing furiously for one weekend will not make you an author, but writing consistently each morning will fill the pages of a book. Intensity creates moments, but consistency creates momentum, and momentum is what carries you forward when motivation disappears. The beauty of consistency is that it compounds. Small, steady actions stack on one another, quietly building skills, discipline, and results that intensity alone cannot sustain. Consistency also builds identity, because it proves to yourself that you are someone who follows through, someone who shows up regardless of mood or circumstance. Over time, that identity becomes unshakable, and the habit becomes second nature. Intensity often feeds on emotion, but consistency feeds on commitment, and commitment lasts far longer than fleeting passion. Even in setbacks, consistency keeps you moving, because missing one day does not erase the pattern you've built, while intensity often collapses after a single failure. The greatest achievements in life, whether in health, career, relationships, or personal growth, are never the result of a single dramatic act, but of thousands of quiet, consistent choices that accumulate into extraordinary outcomes. Consistency is patient, steady, and often overlooked, but it is the quiet force that outperforms intensity every time. Stack new habits onto existing routines, because the easiest way to create lasting change is to anchor it to something you already do without thinking. Our brains thrive on patterns, and routines act like strong foundations that make it easier to attach new behaviors. When you connect a new habit to an existing one, you eliminate the struggle of remembering or forcing it, because the old routine automatically triggers the new action. If you want to start flossing, attach it to brushing your teeth. If you want to practice gratitude, connect it to your morning coffee. If you want to meditate, do it right after you wake up and make your bed. These small connections create a natural flow where one habit leads seamlessly into the next. This technique works because habits are not just about discipline, but about cues, and existing routines serve as powerful cues already wired into your brain. By stacking a new behavior onto something automatic, you transform it from a separate task into part of the rhythm of your day. Over time, this layering builds a chain of positive actions that grow stronger with repetition. It also reduces decision fatigue, because instead of asking yourself when or how to do a habit, the routine decides for you. The more you practice habit stacking, the more momentum you build, creating powerful sequences that support your growth without overwhelming your willpower. Imagine finishing a workout, then immediately drinking a glass of water, then sitting down to read for 10 minutes, all connected because each habit flows from the previous one. One small action becomes the doorway to another, turning your routines into rituals of transformation. Habit stacking teaches you that change doesn't require starting from scratch. It requires building on what already exists, using the stability of the familiar to create the strength for the new. Reward yourself to reinforce positive behavior, because the brain is wired to repeat actions that feel good. And when you connect satisfaction to a habit, you strengthen the desire to return to it. Many people focus only on discipline and grit, forgetting that joy and reward are powerful motivators that make habits stick for the long term. If every time you practice a habit it feels like punishment, you'll eventually resist it. But if it brings a sense of pleasure or achievement, your brain begins to crave it. Rewards don't have to be grand or material. They can be as simple as a moment of acknowledgement, tracking your progress, or celebrating small wins. Imagine finishing a workout and enjoying the rush of endorphins, or reading a chapter of a book and allowing yourself a cup of your favorite tea. These moments of positive reinforcement signal to your brain that the effort is worthwhile. Over time, the habit becomes associated with satisfaction, and it shifts from being something you push yourself to do into something you want to do. The key is to choose rewards that align with your growth rather than undermine it. Celebrate finishing a week of healthy eating with a fun activity or self-care, not with undoing your progress. The act of rewarding yourself also builds momentum, because each celebration marks progress and reminds you that you're moving closer to the person you want to become. Habits are strengthened not just by repetition, but by the emotions attached to them, and positive emotions accelerate the process of embedding behavior into your identity. Think of it like training a muscle. Each reward makes the habit stronger, more natural, and more enjoyable. Eventually, the habit itself becomes the reward, but until that identity is fully formed, intentional reinforcement keeps you on track. By linking effort with satisfaction, you turn consistency into something that feels good, and feeling good is one of the most sustainable motivators for long-term change. Discipline becomes freedom when habits are automatic, because what begins as deliberate effort eventually transforms into effortless action that frees your mind and energy. At first, discipline feels like a burden. The constant act of pushing yourself to make the right choice, resisting temptation, and staying committed even when you don't feel like it. But with repetition, what once required struggle becomes second nature, and that shift creates freedom. Think about learning to drive a car. At the beginning, every movement requires concentration, but with practice, the actions become automatic, and driving no longer feels like work. The same is true with habits. When you've trained yourself to eat healthy, save money, or exercise regularly, those behaviors no longer require the same mental battle they once did. Instead of draining your willpower, they happen naturally, giving you the freedom to focus on higher goals and deeper growth. Discipline is often misunderstood as restriction, but in reality, it is the gateway to liberation. A disciplined person has the freedom to enjoy health without constant worry, financial stability without panic, and strong relationships without chaos. This freedom exists because automatic habits remove the weight of decision-making and the friction of constant self-control. When you don't have to ask yourself whether you'll go to the gym, whether you'll wake up early, or whether you'll save part of your income, you are no longer chained to indecision. You simply act. This automation builds confidence, because each habit reinforces the truth that you can rely on yourself. The initial investment of discipline pays dividends in peace of mind, clarity, and control over your life. True freedom is not the absence of structure, but the presence of habits so aligned with your goals that they create a life where discipline no longer feels like effort, but like effortless alignment with who you want to be. Track your habits to build accountability, because what gets measured gets managed, and awareness is the first step toward change. Many people struggle with consistency not because they lack desire, but because they lack a clear picture of their progress. By tracking habits, you create a visual reminder of your efforts, and that reminder becomes both motivation and accountability. Each check mark on a calendar, each entry in a journal, or each update in an app serves as proof that you showed up, even on the days you didn't feel like it. This simple act of recording transforms vague intentions into tangible evidence, and that evidence builds confidence. Tracking also highlights patterns that you might otherwise miss. You notice which days you are strongest, where you often slip, and what triggers affect your consistency. With that awareness, you can adjust your environment, routines, or mindset to improve. There is also a psychological reward in seeing progress accumulate, because the streak becomes something you don't want to break. Missing one day feels more significant when you see a chain of effort laid out in front of you, and that pressure encourages you to keep going. Habit tracking is not about perfection, but about accountability to yourself. reminding you that progress is built one small action at a time. It shifts the focus from lofty outcomes to the simple, daily process, which is where transformation truly happens. Over time, tracking becomes a mirror of your identity, showing you the person you are becoming through your repeated choices. Whether you use a notebook, an app, or a wall calendar, the tool itself doesn't matter as much as the commitment to track honestly and consistently. When you can see your progress, you prove to yourself that change is real, and that proof builds the accountability and momentum needed to keep moving forward. Design your environment for the future you desire, because your surroundings quietly shape your actions, your mindset, and ultimately the results you achieve. Every space you live or work in either pushes you toward growth or pulls you back into old patterns. If your environment is cluttered with distractions, temptations, and reminders of the past, it becomes harder to step into the version of yourself you want to create. But when you intentionally design your surroundings to align with your goals, the environment itself starts working for you rather than against you. Imagine wanting to eat healthier, placing fresh fruits and vegetables where they are visible and easy to reach makes the choice effortless. If your goal is to exercise, keeping your workout clothes and shoes ready the night before reduces resistance in the morning. If you want to focus deeply on work, clearing your desk of clutter and silencing notifications creates the mental clarity to do so. Each small design decision sends a signal to your brain about what matters most and makes the desired action the path of least resistance. Your environment also includes the people you surround yourself with, because their energy, habits, and behaviors influence yours more than you realize. Spend time with people who embody discipline, positivity, and ambition, and their habits will naturally rub off on you. Spend time in negative, distracting, or toxic environments, and your progress will slow down no matter how motivated you feel. The future you desire is not something you stumble into. It is something you design step by step, starting with the spaces and people around you. When you align your environment with your vision, you no longer fight constant battles with willpower. Instead, you live in a world that makes your growth automatic, a world that reminds you of who you are becoming every time you look around. Break habits by removing triggers and cues, because every behavior you repeat is tied to something that sparks it, and without the spark, the fire begins to die out. Habits don't appear randomly. They are activated by signals in your environment, your emotions, or your routines. If you always snack while watching television, the act of turning on the TV becomes a trigger. If you scroll through your phone the moment you feel bored, but boredom itself is the cue. By identifying and removing these starting points, you weaken the chain reaction that leads to the unwanted behavior. This process begins with awareness, paying attention to when, where, and why the habit occurs. Once you understand the triggers, you can create distance, keep unhealthy snacks out of the house, and you reduce the chance of reaching for them. Place your phone in another room during work or study time, and you interrupt the reflex to check it constantly. Avoid situations or places where the temptation is strongest and the habit loses its grip. Sometimes it's not about total removal, but about replacement, swapping the old cue for a healthier response. For example, if stress triggers overeating, replace the habit with deep breathing or a quick walk. The important part is breaking the automatic connection between the cue and the old behavior. Each time you disrupt the cycle, you weaken the neural pathways that keep the habit alive. Over time, without consistent reinforcement, the habit fades. This strategy works because willpower alone is rarely strong enough to resist deeply ingrained routines, but reshaping your environment makes resistance easier. By deliberately removing or altering triggers, you gain control over behaviors that once felt automatic, and you create space to build new habits that align with the life you want to live. Focus on progress, not perfection, because the pursuit of perfection often paralyzes action, while progress keeps you moving forward. Perfection creates unrealistic expectations that can lead to frustration, procrastination, or even giving up entirely when reality doesn't match the ideal. Progress, on the other hand, celebrates small wins, steady growth, and continuous improvement, which is what real change is built on. When you measure yourself only by perfection, every mistake feels like failure. But when you measure by progress, every step, no matter how small, is proof that you are evolving. Think of learning a new skill. If you demand perfection from the beginning, you'll feel discouraged. But if you focus on getting slightly better each time, you'll eventually master it. Progress builds confidence because it allows you to see tangible evidence of your efforts, and that evidence fuels momentum. It also removes the heavy burden of needing to be flawless and replaces it with the freedom to learn, adapt, and grow. Life is not about doing everything right the first time. It is about making mistakes, learning from them, and moving forward stronger. Perfection keeps you stuck in fear of falling short, while progress embraces imperfection as part of the journey. Progress is flexible, forgiving, and sustainable, while perfection is rigid, punishing, and exhausting. Over time, consistent progress compounds into remarkable results that perfectionists often never reach because they quit too soon. The truth is, no one sees perfection anyway. People see persistence, effort, and growth. When you focus on progress, you give yourself permission to start small, to experiment, and to take risks without being crushed by the weight of unrealistic standards. Each small step forward is a victory, and those victories add up to transformation. Progress doesn't demand flawless execution, only the willingness to keep showing up and moving closer to the person you want to become. Habits create momentum. Momentum fuels growth, because the small actions you repeat daily set energy in motion that carries you forward with increasing strength. At first, building a habit feels slow and even frustrating, like pushing a heavy object that resists movement. But once you've started, each repetition adds force, and over time the effort required becomes less while the results become greater. Momentum is the hidden power of habits. It turns isolated actions into a rhythm that propels you forward even on the days you don't feel motivated. When you establish a simple routine, such as reading 10 minutes a day, exercising for a short session, or saving a small amount of money, you are not only completing the habit itself, but also building momentum that makes it easier to continue tomorrow. Each successful action reinforces your identity, builds confidence, and creates a sense of progress, which makes you want to keep going. The more you move forward, the stronger the pull becomes, and soon the momentum is carrying you rather than you forcing yourself to push. This momentum then fuels growth because it creates consistency, and consistency compounds into mastery and achievement. What once felt difficult becomes automatic, and what once seemed impossible becomes natural. Just as a snowball gathers size and speed as it rolls downhill, your habits gather energy and produce results that exceed the effort you invested at the start. Momentum also helps you recover from setbacks faster, because when you have a strong chain of progress behind you, a single missed day does not derail the journey. Instead, it becomes a small bump in an otherwise powerful forward motion. Growth is not about sudden leaps, but about the steady acceleration created by momentum, and habits are the engine that generates that force. By focusing on building habits, you give yourself the push that starts the wheel turning, and once it spins, growth becomes inevitable. Master the art of showing up daily, because nothing shapes your future more than the decision to keep moving forward, even in the smallest way, no matter how you feel. Success rarely comes from rare bursts of effort. It comes from the quiet, steady rhythm of presence, from choosing to engage with your goals consistently, day after day. When you show up, you create opportunities for progress, learning, and growth, and when you don't, you allow excuses and procrastination to steal your potential. The act of showing up is powerful because it builds trust with yourself. You prove, through action, that you are reliable and committed. Even on the days when you lack motivation, The simple act of doing something, however small, reinforces discipline and keeps the momentum alive. Think of it like planting seeds in a garden. If you show up every day to water, nurture, and care for those seeds, growth is inevitable, even if you don't see immediate results. The same is true for habits, skills, and dreams. Showing up daily provides the nourishment they need to flourish. Without showing up, even the greatest talent or plan will wither, but with consistent effort, even modest abilities can produce extraordinary outcomes. Showing up daily also removes the weight of perfection. You don't need to do everything flawlessly. You just need to be there, to take the next step, to give what you can in that moment. Over time, these small, imperfect actions compound into massive progress. Writing 1 page a day creates a book, saving a few dollars builds financial security, exercising for a few minutes strengthens your body, and practicing a skill regularly turns it into mastery. The magic lies not in doing everything at once, but in choosing not to quit. Life will always offer reasons to avoid showing up: fatigue, distraction, fear of failure, or the illusion that skipping one day won't matter. But every time you show up despite these obstacles, you build resilience and mental strength. You remind yourself that progress is made by those who act, not by those who wait for the perfect moment. The truth is, consistency beats intensity, and presence beats perfection. Showing up daily turns effort into identity. It transforms what you do occasionally into who you are consistently. When you master the art of showing up, you no longer depend on fleeting motivation or external inspiration. You become powered by commitment and discipline, and that is what leads to freedom, growth, and success. Day by day, the simple choice to be present creates a compound effect that shapes your destiny. The greatest victories are built not on rare acts of greatness, but on the ordinary, repeated act of showing up every single day. Tiny wins build unstoppable confidence because they serve as proof that progress is possible, that change is within reach, and that you are capable of achieving more than you once believed. Confidence doesn't come from waiting for massive breakthroughs or extraordinary achievements. It grows from the accumulation of small victories that remind you of your strength, your discipline, and your potential. Every tiny win is like laying a brick in the foundation of self-belief, and as the structure rises higher, you begin to see yourself differently. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable because you've trained your mind to recognize that progress doesn't have to be grand to be meaningful. When you celebrate a tiny win, whether it's getting out of bed on time, choosing a healthier meal, writing a single paragraph, or putting aside a small amount of money, you are reinforcing the message that your efforts matter. Each success becomes evidence that you can follow through, that you can set an intention and bring it to life. Over time, this creates an unshakable inner trust, and trust is the root of confidence. You no longer question whether you are capable, because your daily wins provide undeniable proof. Tiny wins also create momentum, and momentum multiplies confidence. The more you achieve, the more energy you feel, and the more energy you feel, the more likely you are to keep going. This forward motion transforms hesitation into action and fear into courage. Confidence thrives not in theory but in practice, and tiny wins give you countless opportunities to practice succeeding. Even on tough days when motivation feels low, a small victory can shift your mindset and remind you that progress is always possible. Another powerful aspect of tiny wins is how they shift your identity. Each time you follow through, you are casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. Completing a workout, no matter how short, reinforces the identity of someone who values health. Reading for a few minutes affirms that you are a learner. Saving a small amount of money affirms that you are disciplined with your future. These wins may appear insignificant in isolation, but together they create a powerful story about who you are becoming, and that story builds unstoppable confidence. Confidence is not the absence of doubt. It is the belief that you can handle challenges despite doubt. Tiny wins provide a steady stream of reminders that you are capable of rising to the occasion. With every small success, you silence the inner critic that says you can't and strengthen the voice that says you can. Over time, these wins accumulate into a reservoir of self-assurance that no setback can easily drain. The path to unstoppable confidence doesn't begin with giant leaps, but with small, consistent steps forward, and each one building on the last until you can no longer deny the strength and resilience you have cultivated. Willpower is weakest. Structure is strongest, because no matter how disciplined or determined you think you are, relying solely on willpower is like trying to hold your breath under water. It might work for a short time, but eventually your natural impulses will win. Willpower is a limited resource, easily drained by stress, fatigue, and decision overload. It can carry you through moments of inspiration, but it cannot sustain you through the long journey of lasting change. That is why structure matters more. Structure is the invisible framework that shapes your behavior without requiring constant mental effort. When you design systems, routines, and environments that align with your goals, you no longer need to fight temptation with sheer force. You've created conditions that make the right choice the easy choice. Think about how difficult it is to resist unhealthy food when it is sitting right in front of you. Willpower alone can help you say no once or twice, but eventually your resistance fades. Now imagine you simply never bought that food, and your kitchen is filled only with nourishing options. That is structure at work. It eliminates unnecessary battles by removing the trigger altogether. The same applies to exercise, work, and personal growth. If you rely on willpower to decide whether or not to act, you will lose often. But if you build structure, like scheduling workouts at the same time each day, setting up a dedicated workspace, or automating savings, you reduce the burden of choice and turn effort into habit. Structure is stronger because it is proactive rather than reactive. Willpower reacts to temptation, but structure prevents temptation from appearing in the first place. Willpower tries to fight distractions, while structure designs an environment that minimizes them. Willpower struggles in the moment, but structure shapes the moments before they even arrive. In this way, structure acts like a protective guardrail that keeps you on track, even when your energy and focus waver. The truth is, even the most successful people are not those with superhuman willpower, but those who have mastered the art of creating supportive structures. They understand that discipline is not about constant struggle, but about smart design. They make systems do the heavy lifting so that progress becomes automatic. This is why building routines, establishing clear boundaries, and designing environments that align with your goals is so powerful. Willpower may get you started, but structure keeps you going. When you rely on willpower, you are at the mercy of your moods and circumstances. When you rely on structure, you are guided by a system that holds strong even when your emotions fluctuate. Over time, this consistency compounds into transformation, proving that while willpower is fleeting, structure has the power to carry you all the way to your desired future. Your habits today shape your identity tomorrow, because every action you take is a reflection of who you are becoming. What you repeatedly do each day sends a message to yourself about the kind of person you are, and over time, those messages harden into beliefs that form your identity. If you choose to exercise daily, even in small amounts, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who cares about health. If you read every morning, you strengthen the idea that you are a learner. If you save money consistently, you affirm that you are disciplined and forward-thinking. The habits you practice are not just tasks. They are votes for the person you want to be, shaping the story you tell yourself about who you are. The truth is, identity is not something fixed. It is fluid and shaped by your repeated behaviors. Many people believe they need to change their identity first in order to change their habits, but the opposite is true. You become the kind of person you want to be by practicing the habits that align with that vision. Each small action is evidence of your future self taking shape. This is why it is so important to focus not only on outcomes, but also on the daily actions that lead there. You cannot wait until you achieve a goal to become the person you want to be. You must live out that identity now through consistent habits. Consider how powerful this is. When you align your habits with your desired identity, you no longer rely on willpower to keep going. Instead, your actions feel natural because they flow from who you believe yourself to be. Someone who identifies as a runner doesn't have to debate whether to go for a jog. They simply act in alignment with their identity. Someone who sees themselves as a writer doesn't struggle endlessly to write. They show up because writing is who they are. This is why building habits is ultimately about building identity. Habits are small, but their impact is immense. Every repetition is a quiet whisper reinforcing your identity. Positive habits gradually build a strong, empowering identity, while negative habits quietly shape one that limits your potential. If you want to change who you are tomorrow, begin with the actions you choose today. Replace the belief that identity is something you discover with the truth that identity is something you create. Over time, the link between your habits and your identity becomes unbreakable. You trust yourself more because your actions consistently match the kind of person you aspire to be. And with that trust comes confidence, resilience, and growth. Your habits today are not just choices in the moment, they are investments in your future self, carving out the path of who you will become tomorrow. Good habits create freedom, bad habits create chains. Because the daily choices you make either open doors or lock you into patterns that limit your potential. Freedom is not about doing whatever you want in the moment. It is about having control over your future. When you build good habits, like exercising, saving money, reading, or practicing gratitude, you create systems that support your growth and give you options later in life. A person who exercises consistently has the freedom to enjoy health and energy. Someone who saves diligently has the freedom to make choices without financial stress. A learner who reads daily has the freedom of knowledge and perspective. Good habits may feel like discipline at first, but in reality, they are the foundation of long-term freedom because they free you from regret, from wasted time, and from being trapped by poor decisions. On the other hand, bad habits create invisible chains that grow heavier over time. At first, skipping the gym or overspending may seem harmless, but repeated often enough, these actions shape your life in ways that trap you. A bad habit is like adding another link to a chain. You may not feel its weight immediately, but eventually it restricts your movement, limits your opportunities, and holds you back from living the life you truly want. Habits like procrastination, overindulgence, or constant distraction can quietly consume your potential until you feel stuck in patterns you never consciously chose. Unlike freedom, which expands your future, chains reduce it, leaving you with fewer options and more regrets. The difference between freedom and chains lies in consistency. Every time you practice a good habit, you are giving yourself future leverage. You are building health, wealth, confidence, or skills that compound over time and expand your possibilities. Every time you indulge a bad habit, you are sacrificing a piece of that future freedom for temporary comfort, adding another chain that will be harder to break later. The habits you follow today determine whether you live with the lightness of freedom or the heaviness of chains. The irony is that people often resist good habits because they feel restrictive in the moment. Waking up early, budgeting, exercising, or saying no to distractions requires discipline and effort. Yet these very actions remove restrictions from your future, granting you greater autonomy and opportunities. Conversely, bad habits often feel freeing in the moment. They promise relaxation, indulgence, or escape. But in reality, they quietly enslave you by limiting your strength, depleting your resources, or stealing your time. When you understand this, discipline no longer feels like a burden but a pathway to true freedom. Each good habit you build is like unlocking a door to a bigger, brighter future. Each bad habit you break is like removing a chain that has been weighing you down. The life you desire is built not in grand moments, but in the daily habits that either liberate you or bind you. Change your environment, and you change your behavior, because the spaces you live and work in constantly influence the choices you make, often without you realizing it. Human behavior is not just a matter of willpower or discipline. It is deeply shaped by cues, triggers, and signals around you. The environment acts as a silent partner in your decision-making, either pulling you toward progress or dragging you into old patterns. If your home, workplace, or social circle is filled with distractions, temptations, and negativity, it becomes harder to live intentionally, no matter how motivated you feel. But if your environment is designed thoughtfully, it naturally guides you toward the person you want to become. Consider something as simple as nutrition. If your kitchen counters are covered with processed snacks, you will constantly battle the urge to indulge because the cue is always in sight. Willpower alone may help you resist once or twice, but eventually the environment wins. Now imagine that same space filled with fresh fruits, clean water, and healthier options in plain view, while junk food is out of sight or absent altogether. Suddenly the battle shifts. You no longer need to summon extraordinary discipline. The environment has been shaped to make the good choice the easy choice. This is the power of environment design. It reduces friction for positive habits and increases friction for negative ones. The same principle applies to productivity. A cluttered, noisy, or disorganized workspace breeds distraction and procrastination, while a clean, minimal, and intentional setup invites focus and flow. Your environment can serve as a constant reminder of your priorities, or as a trap that keeps you stuck in cycles of avoidance. By changing even small details, placing your phone in another room while working, arranging your desk to face away from distractions, or keeping a notebook and pen close for ideas, you reshape the path of least resistance and make success feel natural rather than forced. Environment extends beyond the physical to include the social. The people you surround yourself with influence your standards, your energy, and your habits. Spend time with those who are disciplined, growth-oriented, and supportive, and their behaviors will rub off on you. Spend time with those who complain, procrastinate, or indulge in destructive patterns, and you will unconsciously mirror them. Social environments are powerful because they set invisible norms for what feels acceptable. By intentionally choosing who you spend time with, you elevate your own behavior without constant struggle. Changing your environment also means curating the inputs that feed your mind. The books you read, the media you consume, the conversations you entertain, these shape your thoughts, and your thoughts shape your actions. If you fill your environment with negativity, fear, and distractions, your behavior will reflect that. If you surround yourself with inspiration, knowledge, and clarity, your behavior will shift accordingly. Ultimately, environment change is about removing the unnecessary battles that drain your willpower and replacing them with conditions that support your goals. You do not need to fight every day to become better. You need to design spaces, routines, and circles that make better almost automatic. When you change your environment, you set the stage for lasting transformation, because behavior is not just chosen, it is cued. And when the cues are right, the habits follow. Start small. Success grows from consistency, because every great achievement begins with a single step, a simple action repeated with dedication over time. Too often, people are tempted to chase massive change all at once, believing that success demands dramatic effort or extraordinary breakthroughs. But the truth is, starting small is the key to building momentum, confidence, and sustainable habits. When you begin with small, manageable actions, you eliminate the fear of overwhelm and create an entry point that makes progress possible. That small beginning becomes a seed, and with consistent nurturing, it grows into something far greater than you ever imagined. Consistency is what transforms those small beginnings into lasting results. A single workout will not transform your body, just as reading one chapter will not make you wise or saving a few dollars will not make you wealthy. Yet when those actions are repeated daily or weekly, they compound over time, creating results that appear almost magical to anyone who wasn't watching the process unfold. This is why consistency outweighs intensity. A person who exercises for 10 minutes every day will eventually see more progress than someone who works out intensely for 2 hours once a month and then quits. The secret is not in how hard you push once, but in how steadily you keep showing up. Starting small also helps build confidence. When you succeed at something simple, you create evidence that you can follow through, and that evidence strengthens your belief in yourself. Each small success is like a brick laid in the foundation of trust you have with yourself, and over time, that trust becomes unshakable. This is how tiny wins lead to unstoppable momentum. The satisfaction of achieving something manageable encourages you to continue, and soon you are taking on bigger challenges without hesitation, because you know you can handle them. Another advantage of starting small is that it bypasses the perfectionist trap. When you aim too high too quickly, failure feels inevitable, and discouragement sets in fast. But when the bar is low enough to step over, you eliminate excuses and silence the inner critic. Writing one paragraph feels doable compared to demanding a full chapter. Walking around the block feels possible compared to running 5 miles. Putting away $1 feels realistic compared to saving hundreds. Small steps shrink resistance and make action natural. Over time, those small steps accumulate, and the distance you've covered surprises even you. Consistency also rewires your identity. Every repeated action casts a vote for the person you are becoming. Writing daily, even in small amounts, shifts your identity toward being a writer. Practicing gratitude each morning shifts your identity toward being a grateful person. Saving money regularly shifts your identity toward being responsible with finances. These identity shifts are powerful because once you see yourself in a new way, your actions align effortlessly with that belief. Starting small gives you the chance to experience these identity shifts early, and consistency makes them permanent. Success, then, is not about chasing giant leaps but about committing to small, repeatable actions that build upon each other. Every time you choose to show up, no matter how small the effort, you are investing in a future where those investments multiply. Over time, the compound effect of your consistency turns those small beginnings into extraordinary outcomes, proving that greatness is built not in sudden bursts but in the quiet power of starting small and never stopping. Build systems that outlast motivation, because motivation is fleeting while systems provide the framework that keeps you moving forward even when your energy and enthusiasm fade. Everyone begins with a burst of inspiration, a surge of desire to change, but that spark rarely lasts. Life gets busy, emotions fluctuate, obstacles appear, and motivation begins to waver. If your success depends solely on feeling motivated, you will struggle to stay consistent because no one feels driven all the time. That is why systems matter. They transform effort into structure, making progress automatic instead of optional. A system is a set of routines, processes, and environments designed to guide your behavior without requiring constant decision-making or willpower. Systems remove the burden of choice by embedding your goals into your daily life so they become the default path rather than the exception. For example, if you want to eat healthier, relying on motivation to resist junk food is unreliable. But if your system is to meal prep on Sundays, stock your kitchen with nutritious foods, and plan your meals ahead, you eliminate unnecessary battles. The structure itself does the heavy lifting, and your results no longer hinge on whether or not you feel like it in the moment. Systems are powerful because they create consistency. A writer who relies on inspiration may wait days or weeks before writing a word, but a writer with a system, such as setting a daily writing schedule at the same time each morning, produces work regardless of mood. An athlete who relies on motivation might train only when excited, but one with a structured training plan and accountability will keep showing up, and that consistency compounds into progress. Systems bridge the gap between desire and discipline, ensuring that action happens even when motivation disappears. Another strength of systems is that they scale with time. Motivation is momentary, but systems evolve with you, supporting larger goals as you grow. What begins as a small system, like committing to 5 minutes of exercise daily, can expand into a full workout routine because the structure builds momentum. Systems act like scaffolding. You can climb higher because you always have a framework holding you steady. Over months and years, systems outproduce even the most intense bursts of motivation because they make progress sustainable. Building systems also reduces decision fatigue. Every decision you make during the day drains mental energy, and when you rely on willpower alone, you eventually run out. Systems automate good decisions by creating clear rules and routines. Laying out your clothes the night before makes morning exercise easier. Having a fixed bedtime routine signals to your body that it's time to rest. Scheduling time blocks for deep work removes the temptation to multitask. With systems in place, you free your mind from unnecessary choices and focus your energy on execution. Ultimately, systems create freedom. While motivation can feel exciting in the short term, it is unreliable and inconsistent. Systems, however, provide stability and direction. They turn goals into processes and processes into habits. You no longer have to wait for the perfect mood or the right circumstances. You simply follow the structure you've built. Over time, these systems not only sustain your growth but also define your identity, proving that lasting success doesn't come from chasing motivation, but from creating systems that carry you forward no matter how you feel. Bad days don't break habits. Quitting does. Because progress is never about being perfect every single day, but about showing up again after setbacks. Too many people believe that missing one workout, skipping one study session, or indulging in one unhealthy meal destroys all the progress they've made. The truth is, a single bad day is just a bump in the road, and what truly matters is how quickly you return to the path. Habits are built through consistency over time, not through flawless execution, and the only thing that can truly break them is the decision to stop altogether. When you expect yourself to be perfect, you set yourself up for disappointment because life will always throw challenges your way. You will have days when you are tired, overwhelmed, or distracted. You will encounter setbacks, stress, and unexpected events. Perfection is impossible, but resilience is within your control. Missing once is not failure, it is an opportunity to practice resilience by starting again. Habits are like muscles. The more you practice returning after a stumble, the stronger you become. The people who succeed are not those who never slip, but those who never let a slip turn into surrender. Bad days actually have hidden value because they test your commitment. Anyone can keep going when conditions are perfect, but learning to restart after failure builds strength and discipline that perfection never teaches. A bad day becomes proof that you are human, and continuing after it becomes proof that you are determined. This is why the real danger lies not in setbacks, but in quitting. Quitting is the moment you decide the habit no longer matters, the moment you let a temporary challenge define your future. Quitting shuts the door on progress, but returning reopens it. Think of habits like planting a tree. Missing one day of watering will not kill it, but pulling it out of the ground will. Similarly, missing one day of action does not erase the growth you've built, but quitting altogether prevents the roots from ever taking hold. The consistency you've already invested still exists, and one stumble cannot erase weeks or months of effort. What matters most is not avoiding mistakes, but refusing to give up after them. The key is to adopt the mindset of never missing twice. If you miss one workout, commit to doing the next one. If you overspend one day, return to budgeting the next. If you skip reading tonight, pick up the book tomorrow. By refusing to let one miss become two, you keep the habit alive, and over time, the chain of progress continues to grow stronger. This mindset builds resilience and prevents temporary setbacks from turning into permanent failure. Ultimately, habits are about identity, and bad days do not erase who you are becoming. Every time you restart, you cast another vote for the identity you desire. Quitting is the only true failure, because it halts the process entirely. As long as you keep coming back, no matter how many times you stumble, your habits remain intact, and your future continues to move forward. The quality of your life is the quality of your habits, because what you repeatedly do each day determines the direction of your future more than any single event ever could. Life is not shaped by occasional bursts of effort or rare moments of inspiration, but by the quiet, consistent actions that become your routines. Your habits dictate how you spend your time, where you focus your energy, and ultimately what kind of results you experience. If your days are filled with habits that support growth, health, and purpose, your life will naturally reflect those qualities. If your days are filled with habits that drain your energy, waste your time, or cloud your mind, the outcome will be equally predictable. Every habit acts like a vote for the life you are creating. The way you eat shapes your health. The way you manage money shapes your financial future. The way you treat people shapes your relationships. The way you spend your free time shapes your opportunities for growth. These small, repeated choices may not feel significant in the moment, but their cumulative effect is enormous. Just as drops of water over time can carve a stone, your habits quietly carve the trajectory of your life. The beauty of habits is that they create momentum. Positive habits free you from constant decision-making because they automate good choices. Instead of relying on willpower to decide whether or not to exercise, a habit ensures you do it naturally. Instead of constantly battling with yourself over spending, a habit of saving removes the struggle. When good habits are in place, life becomes lighter because your actions align with your goals without requiring constant effort. This is why people who cultivate empowering habits often appear disciplined or lucky. They are simply reaping the rewards of the systems they built. In contrast, negative habits weigh life down because they create cycles that are difficult to break. A habit of procrastination leads to missed opportunities. A habit of poor diet leads to declining health. A habit of negativity leads to strained relationships and limited vision. These habits trap you not because of one poor choice, but because of repeated behaviors that compound into outcomes you didn't intend. Just as good habits create freedom, bad habits create invisible chains that restrict your potential. Recognizing that the quality of your life mirrors the quality of your habits puts the power back in your hands. You may not control every circumstance, but you do control how you respond, and habits are the daily expression of those responses. When you intentionally design habits that align with the life you desire, you are, in effect, designing your future. Reading each day may not transform you overnight, but it shapes a mind that continues to grow. Exercising regularly may not make you an athlete instantly, but it builds strength and resilience. Practicing gratitude may not erase life's challenges, but it fills you with perspective and peace that enrich your journey. Over time, these repeated actions define your identity. You become what you consistently practice, and your life reflects that identity back to you. If you want a better life, begin by building better habits. Each small improvement in your routines improves the quality of your days, and the quality of your days becomes the quality of your life. In the end, your life is not defined by the grand moments that happen once in a while. It is built in the silence of your daily choices, shaped by the habits you repeat without even noticing. Every action is a vote for the person you are becoming. Every small win a seed of future transformation. Habits are the invisible architecture of your life. They can chain you to mediocrity or free you to greatness. The difference lies in whether you choose them consciously or let them control you unconsciously. Change doesn't require overwhelming effort. It requires consistency, awareness, and the courage to start small. The environment you design, the systems you build, and the identity you adopt will either empower or limit you. Motivation will fade, but habits, once formed, carry you forward when discipline feels heavy and energy runs low. Success is not a destination, but a process of showing up daily, improving steadily, and trusting the compound effect of your actions. So let this be your reminder. Greatness is not hidden in some far-off future. It is built in the ordinary routines of today. If you want freedom, craft habits that liberate. If you want transformation, practice the identity of the person you aspire to become. If you want a better tomorrow, choose the small actions today that align with that vision. Because the truth is simple yet powerful, the quality of your habits will always define the quality of your life. And if you master your habits, you will master your destiny in the end. Your life is not defined by the grand moments that happen once in a while. It is built in the silence of your daily choices, shaped by the habits you repeat without even noticing. Every action is a vote for the person you are becoming. Every small win a seed of future transformation. Habits are the invisible architecture of your life. They can chain you to mediocrity or free you to greatness. The difference lies in whether you choose them consciously or let them control you unconsciously. Change doesn't require overwhelming effort. It requires consistency, awareness, and the courage to start small. The environment you design, the systems you build, and the identity you adopt will either empower or limit you. Motivation will fade, but habits, once formed, carry you forward when discipline feels heavy and energy runs low. Success is not a destination, but a process of showing up daily, improving steadily, and trusting the compound effect of your actions. So let this be your reminder. Greatness is not hidden in some far-off future. It is built in the ordinary routines of today. If you want freedom, craft habits that liberate. If you want transformation, practice the identity of the person you aspire to become. If you want a better tomorrow, choose the small actions today that align with that vision. Because the truth is simple yet powerful, the quality of your habits will always define the quality of your life. And if you master your habits, you will master your destiny.